I'm just going to say in general, I don't think I have a lot for this. Obviously, this is a movie you picked, so I'm going to trust you be the lead on this one.
Yeah, I'll be the lead. Don't worry, Luke. I'm always the lead. I mean, I'm always the lead. No, I'm not. I'm not always the lead. But yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get up my my thing of the things, my spreadsheet. All right. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know if the whole voice thing was funny enough because really, I just did it. Like I wasn't really planning it. I just decided in the moment to. Oh, for goodness sake! See, my mum's like right outside, and it's just like. I mean, it's like she doesn't even know what the meaning of a podcast is.
That's got to be the cold intro.
Back up, chump, you know Biggie Smalls rips it quick and kicks it quick. You know how black niggas get with the hoods, fatigues, with the boots, with trees. Flipping cheese, making crazy cheese. Hitting buckshots at niggas that open spots on the avenue. Take my loot and I'm bagging. Pimping hoes that drive Volvos and rodeos. Flash the roll, make a wet in they pantyhose. Damn, a nigga style is unorthodox, grip the clock. When I walk down the crowded blocks. Just in case a nigga wanna act out, I just black out and blow their motherfucking back out. That's a real nigga for you.
Hello, and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out relatively recently at the cinema and see if they still hold up upon a closer inspection. I am your host, Michael, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Luke. Hello, Luke.
Hello, Michael.
And this week, we're going to be beginning our celebration of Halloween, or I think as we call it here, All Hallows Evening.
Yeah, something like that.
And we're going to be looking at some spooky, scary films. And this week we're going to be looking at a quaint little classic called The Descent. And like I say, this is celebrating Halloween. Of course, everyone wants to watch scary films on Halloween. So, Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about The Descent?
Sure thing, Michael. So, The Descent. It's a 2005 British horror film written and directed by Neil Marshall. The film follows 6 women who, having entered a cave system, struggle to survive against the creatures inside. As I said, directed by Neil Marshall, stars Shauna McDonald, Natalie Mendoza, Alex Reed, Saskia Mulder, Mianna Buring, that's a weird name, Nora Jane Noon, and it was released on July the 6th, 2005 in the United Kingdom, but over a year later on August the 4th, 2006 in the United States. Do you want to have a guess at how much it cost to make, Michael? And bearing in mind it will be in pounds, so I don't know if that affects your thinking.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We've not done that before.
I mean, I could probably convert it into dollars, but you know.
So, I mean, it's very obvious. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not massively obvious. Like, it's not like it's no Birdemic, but it's quite obvious this film had a limited budget. I think this film possibly was around the $1 million mark because I know this guy had directed films before this one. So, with that in mind, I think I'm actually going to go for 1.5 million.
The actual budget was 3.5 million.
Okay.
So yeah,
well,
a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, I knew it would be in the low millions.
Mm-hmm.
And the box office.
Yes.
That's an interesting one because obviously I don't really know how it's going to assess the box office.
This is in dollars, by the way.
Oh, that's confusing, isn't it? Okay. So I'm assuming this is probably taking into account United States money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think this film would have done that well at the cinema. So I'm going to go for, I think maybe it made, let's say, I'm going to go quite modest. I think I'm going to go for 8 million.
Wow, Michael. Wow. 57 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking hell.
You know what, I mean, I'm surprised because I didn't realize, well, yeah. 57 million. Good. Well done.
That's great, yeah. That's the thing, like, horror movies, if you can create, obviously they're quite easy to make in terms of expense costs. So if you can make one that it costs like 3.5 million like this one, and it's really good, you could just make so much more money. Like the profit margins could be immense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing with Blumhouse, famously.
Yes.
They just make their model is just make a whole load of films for, a couple of million quid a pop, and every now and then they'll get really lucky and they'll get a Hostel or a Get Out,
yes,
or something like that, and suddenly everyone will be like, wow, and then, just that, even with that, they've already made 1 billion times their money back. possibly not a billion times. I'll tell you what though, if a horror film made Star Wars money, then it would make 1 billion times its budget. No, it would make 1 billion times its budget. No, it would make 1,000 times its budget.
Yeah, you got it there.
That's
Yeah,
it, yeah. It would have to cost like £1 for it to make
yeah.
1 billion times its budget back. Anyway, but I'm curious, Luke. Did you like this film?
Well, Michael, as you know, I think I've said this before, horror movies aren't really my thing. I don't really enjoy them that much. I don't think I get a lot out of them. You know, it's just like, I just don't get like being frightened that much. Having said that, I think this was pretty decent.
Yeah, I kind of like you. So I want to kind of say something. The reason why I picked this film in particular is not because I think it's necessarily the best film ever made by anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
But more because I think it's quite an effective horror film. I think it is quite scary. And like I said, I kind of agree with you. I don't love horror films a lot of the time, and I don't really like. I guess I should also say I don't like crap horror films. Like there are a lot of people who will watch, a film like The Nun, which is the latest film that I saw I've been seeing some trailers for, and they'll know it's going to be crap. But like, we're just going to see it anyway.
You know what, Michael?
Yeah,
I got a bit of a story about The Nun.
Oh, okay, I'm ready for this.
So, well, it's not really a story, more an anecdote. I was just watching Black Klansman, I think it was about a month ago, and I was watching it with my dad, and there was a trailer for The Nun before the movie. And there was, obviously in the trailer, there was this jump scare, like a really scary moment. And my dad, like, next to me, he jumped like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he jumps.
Yeah, literally up in the air. No, just did a little movement, and I was like completely still. I was like, oh yeah, I just didn't really find that scary. And I think that's the issue with horror films, and particularly bad horror films like jump scares. It's like that's what you're expecting. You're expecting these jump scares. So
yeah,
when they come, it's just not that scary, really. But yeah.
Yeah. I agree. So yeah, and that's the thing. It's very easy to make a bad horror film.
Yes, very easy.
Because you literally just need to, like, I think horror films are kind of quite unique in a way. For example, a comedy, you can't really make. I mean, you can make like a bad comedy, but it wouldn't really even be a comedy at that point. Like, because if we define a comedy as at least having to have jokes in it, you can't make a film not everyone can make a film with jokes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we couldn't just make a comedy and have it be really pass as a comedy. But anyway, you can make a horror film, and it can just, very easily be a horror film. All it has to do is have some jump scares and some creepy imagery, and there is no, limit, or like, I'm trying to think, I can't think exactly what the word I'm looking for is, but I basically mean like a qualifier, like something, a certain level you need to have in order to be able to do that. But you do need some skill to make a good film.
Yes, you do.
A good horror film. And obviously, I guess the thing that I possibly should have said, just to clarify, because I haven't quite said, like, the way you would judge a horror film is not the same way you would judge a film. And if you're the type of person who does like to watch a horror film on Halloween, maybe, then of course you're not necessarily just going to look at is the film good. You're going to look at, is the film scary? And obviously, scariness is subjective, but there are some films that do a good job of that. Anyway, so more importantly, Luke, do you have nitpicks?
Yeah, I think I've got one. I mean, I've got some issues generally with the film, but I was like, nah, those aren't really nitpicks. So I think I've only got one nitpick.
I have, this is funny. I've forgotten I did this, because I actually watched this film. I was quite excited to watch this film, mostly. Well, kind of excited. I was also kind of thinking to myself, because when I recommended this film, it was actually based on my memory of having watched it, and I wasn't sure exactly how good it would be, so I kind of was quite excited to rewatch it and be like, and see, like, is this actually as good as I remembered? So I watched it like a while ago, and I've kind of forgotten a lot of what I've got written down. But I actually have 5 nitpicks, kind of. Although some of them aren't, that's how it always is. But that means that you give your one nitpick first, Luke.
Okay, I feel like some of your nitpicks are going to be stuff I talk about as problems later in the movie, but anyway.
Most of mine actually, they're not. I think most of mine probably won't be mentioned, because it's more like, it's not like they're obvious, it's more like they're just stupid.
Okay, fair enough. So my one nitpick is when, I think she's called Sam, that character, the character that gets her hand like ripped open earlier in the movie.
Yeah, with the rope.
Yes, with the rope.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Basically,
to like get up pictures of these characters.
so yes, well, she's hanging from the cave ceiling, and one of these crawlers comes and rips her throat out, and then instead of dying, she somehow manages to summon the energy to jump up and stab it in the head. And that's one where I was like, okay, yeah, if you get your throat ripped out, you're dead. That's how it works. Or at the very least, you've got no energy to do what she did. And I think that's my only nitpick.
Yeah, okay. I didn't have that one, but here mind. Okay, so a very obvious one is the guy's driving was pretty stupid. Like he just turns around and veers into
Okay, yeah.
a lorry.
I was going to mention that later. I thought
you might mention that. Okay,
Yeah.
we can mention that later because I've got quite a few. So very similar scene to yours. It's the scene where to clarify, they're trying to get across a chasm.
Yes.
And this woman has a rope which is kind of holding people in place, and of course the rope falls because of her hand. But before that, she's climbing across, and she's making some like really kind of weird, possibly like unconvincing noises, because she's like all she's doing is kind of hanging by her own body weight, and she's sounding like she's being tortured. She's like and all she's doing is just hanging there, like trying to put something in. I'm like, okay, like I could get like, just grunting slightly. Like if I told you, hey Luke, hang by your body weight and clip something into something else, you'd probably, I mean, you're not a spelunker. You don't spend that much time, I imagine, supporting your own body weight. But even as someone who, shouldn't be used to supporting your own body weight, you'd probably just, have a couple of grunts, just put it in. She's just freaking out.
Do that again.
There you go. That's my impression of you supporting your own body weight while trying to clip something into a rock face.
Yes.
Who said I wasn't good at impressions? Other one, they didn't need to light a flare to see the whole picture. Like, there's a bit where they see a cave painting, and she's like, look, you've got to light a flare. Now, I imagine flares are pretty valuable in a cave. But basically, she's clearly already seen what she wants to see, so she could have literally just pointed the torch and gone, look, there's one entrance, because the whole point is, look, there's two entrances. And I assume if she's aware that there are two entrances, or she's saying you need to light a flare, it's because she's already noticed something. So you would think she would just flash her light and go, look, two entrances. But instead she's like, light one of your flares. And I'm just like, you didn't need to do that. I'm going to give this one, okay. This one's I feel like I've done this twice in a row now, but it's a nitpick that the film then explains at a later point. I did this for the Spider-Man one when it was Harry and the CPR thing. I don't know. It's just my new thing. It's not like a lit pick. It's more like it's a near nitpick.
Okay.
And it's I was really confused by what the daylight thing was. I was like, hold on, she's like, it's not daylight, and I was really worried they weren't going to explain it because they took like a while to explain. There's a bit where a woman, she thinks she sees daylight. She runs towards
Holly.
her like it's not daylight, and then like 10 minutes go past of just this action scene, and then they're like. 10 minutes later, they're like, hey, there was daylight back there. And she says it wasn't daylight, it was phosphorus from the rock. And there you go, Luke. That's, if you're ever in a cave and you think you see daylight, bear in mind, it could just be phosphorus from the rock.
Well, after this movie, I'm never going to a cave, so don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Anyway, and then this is the last one. This one is actually possibly the only one that's a real nitpick. Stabbing someone's eyes out doesn't actually kill them. This is a really important thing to understand because...
Yeah, I wanted that.
This meme of stabbing someone's eyes out and killing them, I feel like it sort of started, if you're going to ignore, the 1500s with King Lear and all that stuff.
Yeah,
really,
we'll do that.
It all started with Blade Runner, where the robot stabs out this guy's eyes and kills him.
I remember that scene. I was
is,
thinking at the time, like, wait, is he dead now?
Yeah, but the thing is, that scene, it kind of makes sense because the guy's like a super strong robot. And the reason why stabbing someone's eyes out doesn't kill them is because your eyes have a bone behind them, called an ocular bone. And you can't, like, the presumption, I assume, is supposed to be that you stick your thumbs through somebody's eyes and you cause them, I assume, brain trauma by pushing through their eyes into their brain. And that's, I guess, how you're supposed to kill them. That's the only way I can assume it would work. However, for the record, no, you can't push your eye. You can push your thumb into someone's eyes, but you're going to hit a bone at the back, and you're not going to be able to push into their brain. So it's going to really suck for the person who you're stabbing in the eyes. But yeah, the point is, this guy, who is, really strong and is a robot, is obviously going to crush through a guy's skull. But, a woman who's got no real leverage, who's quite light, is not going to be able to kill someone by smashing through eyes. And I think people just don't seem to know that there's a bone behind their eyes. So they think, oh yeah, you stab through their eyes and then you hit their brain. It doesn't happen.
Also, the creatures are blind, so I'm not really sure what their eyes are for anyway.
Yeah, that is, yeah. I'm not even sure why they have their eyes open. I don't know. I mean, maybe because from my experience of like blind people, who I don't really know that many of them, but whenever I've seen like pictures or videos or interviews of a blind person, they always have their eyes closed. Blind people don't usually walk around with their eyes open.
Well, I often see blind people wearing sunglasses,
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Maybe these crawlers should have been wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, and little white sticks.
Yeah.
Poking around it. And Labrador dogs to guide them around.
Yeah, Labradors that were like them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cute.
Yeah.
A little cute element to it. Anyway, so that's enough of the nitpicks. And now let's move into the plot, I guess. And Luke, would you like to explain the plot?
Yeah, certainly, Michael. So, as we mentioned before, the film follows 6 women.
I've still got a bit of a cough, by the way.
Alright, we'll deal with it.
Just fair warning.
Okay. So the film follows 6 women who, having entered a cave system, struggle to survive against the creatures inside. So basically it's 1 year since the death of this woman called Sarah's husband, who died in a car accident. And this is when I was going to mention the car accident.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what... It doesn't kickstart the plot because, I don't know, maybe in this scenario they would have gone cave diving in the Appalachian Mountains anyway. But basically, her husband dies, and as you mentioned before, Michael, in the car crash it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, firstly, how did either of them not see the van out of their peripheral vision, and how did the van driver not see them either? Like, the van driver doesn't even slow down either. So it's like, just that's the thing. Like, it's perfectly light. They're driving in a straight line, and it's a shit car crash basically. It really is.
Yeah.
So the car crash happens, the husband dies, and also her daughter dies. And after that, 1 year later, the girls Sarah, Juno, Beth, and Sam, Rebecca, and newcomer Holly are reunited at a cabin in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina for a spelunking adventure. That's actually what it's called, spelunking. So they go into the cave, and while in the cave, they can't get out because it's not actually the cave that Juno said they were going into, so they don't know their way around. And then after that, there's monsters or creatures that come and attack them and kill every single one apart from Sarah. Sarah manages to survive and escape at the end. And along the way, she discovers that Juno had an affair with her now dead husband. There you go. Not a good day for Sarah. There you go. What do you got to say on the plot, Michael?
Okay, look, there's one thing I have to mention right away because I'm very curious about it now. Okay, you said Sarah escaped. Now, that's interesting because you also mentioned how this film was released a year later in the American cinema.
Have you looked at the Wikipedia page too?
No. I happen to know about this anyway.
Oh, right, okay.
For complicated reasons. Basically, so I've only ever seen the UK version, which has a slightly different ending. So in the UK version, Sarah escapes, gets into a car, drives away. Then there's a jump scare where she turns around and sees Juno's dead body. At this point, she wakes up and it turns out that she has passed out in the cave and she's still trapped there. And that's how the film ends. And that's the only version I've seen. However, I did know already for kind of complicated basically, I saw a review of a much less interesting film. Maybe we should talk about this film at the end, actually. I'll just talk about it. It's called The Descent 2. But we're not going to talk about it right now, but I watched a review for it. And basically, that's how I heard about the American ending. And the American ending, like you say, she escapes and gets in a car. And I think the American version still has the jump scare at the end with Juno.
Yes. I'm looking on the Wikipedia page here. It does.
Yeah, and then it cuts to black. But yeah, in the British version, where we can handle slightly depressing endings,
Yeah.
She doesn't escape. So that's what do you think of that, Luke?
Well, yeah, I'm just reading the Wikipedia page. So she pulls over to the side of the road and breaks down in tears after a truck passes. She opens a window and vomits. Upon re-entering the car, she sees a hallucination of Juno sitting next to her and screams before the screen cuts to black. But in the original UK ending, obviously Sarah wakes up in the cave after seeing Juno, revealing she was dreaming the escape. And yeah, then the crawlers are heard closing in on Sarah as the movie cuts to the credits. This part of the ending was cut out because it was considered too dark for US audiences.
Oh, poor United States. They're just like children.
Yeah. It's like, that's the thing. I didn't think the ending was that dark. I also saw the UK version. And so it's like, oh, she didn't get out. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, okay. Like, 5 other people have died. Why not a 6th, eh?
Yeah.
Why not a 6th?
Also, just thought, okay, I mean, she's a murderer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's the thing.
So,
like,
so it's not that sad.
She fucking killed Juno. I mean, that's the thing. Juno did kill, but she killed Beth, her friend, but it was by accident. So, you can't really pin that on Juno. It was actually Beth's fault that she killed, that Juno killed her. Because, like, she's just been in a fight with these crawlers, and then fucking Beth sneaks up on her. Like,
Beth.
Like, it's dark. She's confused. She doesn't know what these things are. And you don't say a word. You just literally walk behind her. Say, hey, Juno, are you all right? Not just sneak up behind them. Fucking idiot. She deserves to die. That's stupid.
Yeah.
The United States, once again, proving they are all betas, and the UK are the alphas, because we can handle stuff. That might be a bit dark. And this wasn't even that dark. Like I said, she's a murderer. Like, 5 other people have died. Her husband's dead. Her child's dead. She's got nothing to live for. Who the fuck cares?
Also, like, the weird thing is, it's a horror film. Like, I'd get it if this was like a fun action family adventure where it's like at the end, there's a depressing ending. I can understand people,
Yeah.
I feel like there is actually an example of a film that was intended for children, or like not necessarily children, but kind of like a PG-12 kind of film.
Yeah.
And it had a bit of a depressing ending in the UK. And then they edited it. And basically they edited it to be, I mean, like, for example, you hear stories about how they edited these superhero films and all these kind of, big blockbusters because they're like, it's too dark, make it less dark. Like Suicide Squad.
And
make it more happy, have more jokes.
Justice League, yeah.
Yeah, but it makes, DC obviously those are terrible films, but it makes sense that they'd edit them because they'd be like, hey, these are going to be watched by kids who, masturbate to Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay.
Well, I assume. Anyway, but yeah, like this film, like I said, this film has just people being killed and like a kid dying in it and people getting their eyes stabbed out. I'm not sure who's watching this. Like, you just get these like 18-year-olds walking out of the cinema with like little sad puppy dog faces, like, but she died at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, funny. Anyway,
funny, hilarious.
So I think that's all we wanted to say about that. I wanted to talk about.
Well, no, I mean, it
thing.
makes sense actually.
Okay, you can talk about this.
No, well, I was just going to say, in addition to talking about how the United States are, pussies and all that, basically, it makes sense if you want to do a sequel because now Sarah survives and also Juno survives, and of course in The Descent 2, which I saw, obviously there's a sequel in 2009. I saw that both Shauna McDonald and Natalie Mendoza reprised their roles as Sarah and Juno. So there you go. If you want to make a sequel to a horror film, it's best not to kill all the characters. So yeah, I mean,
yes,
maybe the part of the ending was cut out not because it was considered too dark for US audiences, but it was considered too
definitive.
Yeah, too definitive, too uncapitalistic, perhaps, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go for uncapitalistic.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good. That sums it up well. Anyway, what do you want to talk about next?
I want to talk about how the film kind of like doesn't really involve that much. Like, it kind of makes it look like she doesn't care that much about her husband because she's really it puts a lot of stress on the fact that her daughter's dead. But like, there are several moments in the film, I can't remember any of them offhand, but it's like there's the stresses are all constantly on like, oh, your daughter died, blah blah blah, how sad, your daughter's dead, and then it's like, her husband did die too. I guess it's just another anti-male film produced by the feminazis.
I was waiting until you brought up anti-male feminazi stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hasn't escaped anybody who's watched the film or listening that all the main characters are female.
Would you say this is very similar to the Ghostbusters film?
Exactly. Extremely similar. Yeah, I was interesting because I don't know why they were all female, but then again, because I looked on the Wikipedia page, I couldn't really come across a reason. But then again, if they were all male, would we be saying why are they all male?
Exactly, yeah. It's
stay woke.
Actually, yeah. I mean, speaking of woke, I mean, we haven't actually put this as a thing to talk about, but we should talk about it. This film, we could talk about it under characters, but let's not. This film is possibly a quintessential example of a proper woke film. It's one of those films where, I mean, we spoke about this with Coming to America, where all the characters just happen to be black. There's no reason why they need to be black.
Yeah, there's no message.
Stress on the fact they're black. And in this film, of course, yeah, all the main characters just happen to be women. There's no reason why they need to be women. It's not like there's no scene where somebody where Melissa McCarthy reads a YouTube comment that says women can't be spelunkers, and she says, "Hey, you nerd, go back to 4chan." There's none of that. It's just, hey, look, they're women. Who cares? It's a big, women can die horribly too. Great.
Yeah, great.
And the other good thing this film has is something. There's a certain horror trope which is like bullshit, like a bullshit love story, which nobody cares about. Not all horror films do this, and some horror films, of course, have good love stories or good romantic relationships. But it's like a lot of horror films. It would be like there'll be a guy probably called Chad who's trying to get with a girl,
or Brad,
and he's like, Chad or Brad or Grad.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, and they'll be like, "Hey, baby, loosen up. This is fun." And she'll be like, "Stop it, Brad. I'm scared." And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'll protect you."
Hey, do you know what'll make you less scared? Taking off those clothes.
Exactly. It's a classic. But yeah, this one doesn't have that, which I thought was a welcome addition to. It's one of those films that makes this not just like your standard crappy. I can't think what type of genre. I guess it's like a creature feature.
A creature feature? Yeah. Well, basically, there's some people that are trapped in a area, whether it's caves or in a building, and there's some weird creatures that are out to get them. And yeah.
Yes. But really, yeah, we shouldn't talk about the plot too much, because this film doesn't have a huge plot.
No, not really.
So yeah, and that's not a bad thing, because obviously a lot of horror films don't have huge plots.
Yeah.
The plot is basically just, they go into a cave. I guess, and like a lot of the other stuff we'll talk about is really around characters. So yeah, they go into a cave. How do they get out of the cave? And there's monsters.
Yeah, it is really a classic sort of horror movie in that,
yes.
How many of them are going to survive, basically. And you're just waiting to see who's going to die, who's going to make it. And yeah, they're trapped obviously in this cave, they can't get out. So yeah, just really simple, classic horror movie. Yeah.
So I don't know which one we're going to talk about next. I feel like, would you rather talk about characters or scariness next?
Let's do scariness. I think scariness.
I was thinking scariness next.
Good.
Okay, so I've got a few things I'd want to talk about.
Okay, go for it.
All right. I think the first thing we should talk about is the claustrophobia
yes.
of this film. So obviously a fear that every normal person has who doesn't go spelunking in caves is fear of being in an enclosed environment. Do you think that this film made a effective use of most people's underlying fear of claustrophobia to heighten the horror experience for the audience?
Yes, certainly. Obviously, look, the actual scariest claustrophobic moment is not involved with the creatures. It's when she gets stuck in that tunnel around the 30-minute mark, I want to say. Sarah,
it's around there.
And like the cave's collapsing and she's panicking and she's like, she can't get out. And that right there, I have to say that I think that was the scariest moment of the whole movie for me. Because, you're picturing yourself in that, it's like, nah, I never want to do that. Like, that's the thing. Like I said before, I'm not going to go cave diving after this movie, and that's pretty much the reason why. Like, it's just a claustrophobic nightmare. I don't know how cave diving is anyone's idea of fun. Anyway, and then you got that, which is, you have to, God, no. I mean, no, not for me, Michael. It's not for me.
You know what, Luke? We should have done this film when there was that whole thing with the
Cave divers.
the cave divers in Thailand.
Yeah, and Elon Musk calling one of them a pedo, and then said, "Well, you know what? If it's not true, then why hasn't he sued me?" And then he sued him after those comments.
Yeah.
So yeah, great stuff.
That is, I like that though. That's just call people a paedophile and then say, well, if they don't sue me, then it must be true.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm, like I say, I think I'm reasonably claustrophobic. I wouldn't say like it's a massive, like I wouldn't say claustrophobia is one of my defining features. But like I say, I can't imagine, I don't understand how anyone on the planet, I agree with you, I don't understand how anyone on the planet isn't like at least a bit claustrophobic. I don't understand how anyone could be like, yeah, I'm perfectly happy being in this enclosed space where I can hardly move at all. This is fun. I guess, I mean, I suppose we should say one thing which does kind of make sense. The fact that she, the woman, the main character, Sarah, her like kids have died and her father's died, her husband's died, there we go. Kind of gives her like a nothing to lose aspect, which makes it maybe a bit more understandable why she would do these crazy things. But I guess the important thing is that people do crazy things. And
well, yeah, I mean,
that's fun.
clearly we see at the beginning of the movie she was whitewater rafting, so she's into that adventure kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I assume, by the way, all these girls they met at university. That's what I was thinking, and they were in like the activities, adventures, society or whatever, like we're going cave diving or we're going whitewater rafting and climbing, and all of that kind of shit.
Yeah, they mentioned they mention university a lot in the beginning when they're kind of getting to know each other and like, hey, she goes to this university and she goes to this university. Yeah, and I think they're all postgraduates, so your theory. And also, I think I got the impression that they do it like it was kind of like they said like, oh, the first time was in the UK, so the first instance was in Scotland, and then the second time. This time they're in the Appalachian Mountains, so I guess the plan was to like go UK, America, because they're British and American.
Yeah, and one of them's European, like Dutch or German or something. I don't know.
Yeah, weirdos. So yeah, university is a good theory, and that's why this film is so scary.
Yeah,
because of claustrophobia.
Because of claustrophobia. Well, I think that is the scariest. That was the scariest moment for me.
It is, yeah. And I think they possibly could have maybe used it a bit more if they would have brought that back and combined it with the monsters. So there was a moment where they had the claustrophobia and the monsters.
Oh, that would have been
never
awful.
Actually combined.
Yeah, they should have. They should have done that. They should have done that.
Yeah.
That would have been properly scary.
Yes. And I think the next one I want to talk about is jump scares. There were a few.
There were a few, yeah.
So obviously, jump scares. It's one of those like double-edged sword sorts of things because, like you say.
You're expecting it.
You're expecting them, and they're a bit like there's a part of me that kind of finds them annoying. Like I'm just like, oh, like I don't really jump at them, but I do sort of have it's kind of like someone just walked up to me and gone bah, and I'm like, oh, damn it. So
Damn it.
So I kind of I don't think they were terrible. Interestingly, they were almost entirely like. Before the monster showed up. It's almost like there's one last jump scare, and that's when the monster shows up. And then there's a whole load of jump scares before then. And then once the monsters actually show up, the jump scares pretty much go away. So I guess the jump scares were just there to kind of build tension. I suppose... I know what we should talk about now. Possibly going on from that. Do you have anything else to say about jump scares?
Well, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you mentioned that, obviously, after the initial jump scares, there weren't any. And that's the thing, like, I said before, jump scares, you're expecting them, but still, after the initial reveal of the monster and the jump scares, and then the monsters are just walking around, and just, like, attacking the survivors, it's not actually that scary afterwards.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
maybe the jump scares could have been useful after that, just to make it a bit scarier.
I agree. And that kind of leads me on to what I wanted to talk about, which I was asking if you'd finished. So you've not only had you not finished, but you give me a perfect segue onto my next thing, which is the monsters. Because I sort of wanted to talk about the monsters and, let's talk about them. They are some kind of humanoid cave dwellers.
Yes.
And they are... So, okay, the first thing I wanted to mention is that this film, like a lot of other films, relies on the mystery in the first half, pretty much.
Yes.
So the mystery of, you know something scary is going to happen. You know there is some kind of thing going on. For example, there's some subtle stuff, like she puts her fingers on she sees like there's a red claw mark on a rock.
And she sees the red dead deer, as well.
Oh, yeah. So she sees, there's this foreshadowing. There's also a bit, which I only knew about because I'd seen it mentioned. I don't know where I saw it mentioned, but I knew it was there. And it's a bit where she flashes her light around and you can see a shadow. And then she takes it away and she puts it back and then the shadow's gone. So that's very subtle, and it's probably so subtle as to be more like an Easter egg than anything that actually contributes. But, there is a lot of stuff where it's like, you can see this monster, it's there, and the jump scares kind of add to that. And then, of course, the monster reveals itself, and you have a bit of I think a problem with horror films in general is, there is always that moment of like the monster itself is ultimately just going to be either CGI or a guy in a suit or, a puppet or whatever else. And ultimately it's never gonna, you just can't live up to the anticipation. So, yeah. So anything to say off that? 'Cause I've been doing it for a bit.
Yeah, no, again, I think you summed it up pretty well. I think basically they should have shown the monsters less. Like you said, that the mystery of the monsters is the scary bit early on. So you should see the crawlers less. And the thing is, also, by the way, it's dark, obviously, in these caves, so it's the perfect, you don't need to show them constantly. If you just show bits and pieces, I think that would have been scarier, and it would have worked as well, because obviously in the cave you can't see a lot. It would have really added to the tension, because once you see them, I think about the halfway point, then it just doesn't become scary after that. Like, the build-up's good, but afterwards it's just not that scary, and I think that's partly because the actual monsters, they're just not that scary. They look like something off Doctor Who, and obviously Doctor Who isn't like the scariest show ever. And it's like, okay, when I first read the description of the movie, and it was just a little description. It was like a blurb,
Yes.
And it's like they have to survive the creatures in the cave, and I'm thinking, creatures, these are going to be like more animal-like to make them scarier. But you can tell these creatures, they're just literally humans in like in a suit. Like, they look very human-esque, and they're just not that scary. Which is a shame. They're just not that frightening.
I agree. I mean, I am quite partial to humanoid monsters, and I think it's because of kind of like an uncanny valley thing. Like, but the thing is, I think the problem with these is that, so I do think going off sort of like something that seems almost human is often quite a good strategy with making something scary, but the problem with this is that it was kind of like they were too human. Like I think if you want to, if you've got something with maybe weird limbs or like huge eyes or, anything that's just like creepy, then that's scary. I mean, I'll tell you what, actually, Luke, I'm gonna show you something super scary. But I'm not gonna show you it right now. I'm gonna look for it. And then I'm gonna actually make an effort to put it on thing, because I want to show you this really scary thing. Well, because it's so scary, Luke, and you're gonna love it. Anyway,
I was just gonna say, I think there's this creature called the Wendigo. Wendigo.
I think it's pronounced the Wendigo.
Wendigo, and that right there, that kind of, I'm just looking at images of it on Google, the Wendigo, and there's like this image of this thing which is kind of human and it's kind of not human. Also, there's images of, what the fuck is that? It's like half deer, half, I don't even know. Don't know who came up with that one, but yeah, it's kind of like, it's not as, it's less human than the creatures in The Descent. I think that would have been good if they had something similar to the Wendigo. Yeah. Wendigo. So, it is a Native American thing or whatever, a terrifying beast of Native American lore, I think. Yeah. Obviously in Appalachia, it's in North America, so they could have made it more like that. But yeah, I think just making the creatures scarier would have been good.
I'm going to show you this super scary image. Okay, get ready for this.
Okay.
Okay. It creeps me out to my core.
What the hell is that? What is that?
It's so creepy.
It looks like
Luke.
just a mannequin.
It disturbs me so much.
I'm opening up a full image now. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it disturbs me. It's kind of creepy, but I don't know. Yeah, nah. I don't think it scares me as much as it scares you, to be honest. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, anyway, there was one thing. Okay, a few other things I want to say about creatures. Okay, I'm gonna.
That was bad radio, by the way.
I know it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. Anyway, so basically, I mentioned before when we're talking about the Predator. This is going to be one of my personal tropes.
Mm-hmm.
My personal tropes I like to build up, which is the monster is this incredible, just killing monster. You know, it's been perfectly evolved. It's in the case of Predator, you know, it's the perfect hunter. And then at the end of it, they kind of just kill it by like shooting it loads, or whatever. And in this one, it's kind of like it's, you know, this monster is designed to live in a cave. It's perfectly evolved to this environment. You would think naturally that it would be just an apex predator. And I think one of the things I found disappointing with this is that, like, as the film goes on in the second and third act,
Yeah.
the creatures become increasingly less of a threat. And there's two specific things that kind of bothered me. The first one is that the creature is somehow not that strong. Like, these women are, you know, I mean, obviously they're probably quite strong because they do spelunking, but they're, you know, have small frames. They're not, you know,
Sexist.
these monsters look buff. Like, these are some sexy looking cave dwellers. They're huge. And these women, you know, I mean, they don't look as huge. I'd say they're probably more toned, you know, because if you're going to be a cave, you can't be a big cave person, can you? I mean, not cave person. You can't be a big spelunker.
No, you'll get
You know,
stuck
you've got-
in the
yeah,
first tunnel.
You've got to be a toned spelunker. You've got to have muscles that can support your body weight. Like, I bet they've got kind of skinny abs, all of them. Every single one of these girls has skinny abs. And the point is that they're like wrestling with these giant cave monsters.
Well, they're not
And-
giant, Michael.
Okay, yeah, but they're big.
Yeah,
They're thick.
they're bigger than
They're
them.
thick.
Yeah.
They're thick boys, and they're wrestling with them, and they're like kind of. There's actually a bit where a woman like throws one of the cave things off of her, and it's just like, you know, I don't know, like, so on the physical strength thing, they're not as big as they should be. Like, I would think it should be like, you know, in a hand-on-hand fight,
Yeah.
cave guy wins every time, but it doesn't really work out like that. And the other thing is their senses. So obviously they're blind. That makes sense. Okay, I can deal with them being blind. But the thing is, their entire vision, quote, vision, is based on sound.
Yes.
Which I would think, if they just had one more, if they just had smell or heat, you know, like some ability, like I think these must be the worst predators on the planet, because the only way they can sense anything is if it's making a sound. Even if so there's a bit where this monster, cave dweller, creeper, I
Yeah.
think they're called crawlers. There we go,
Yeah,
we'll call them
crawlers, yeah.
This crawler is right on top of these girls, and first of all, like, if its entire vision is based off hearing, it should be able to hear them.
Yeah,
Like,
their
you know,
breath, yeah.
They're breathing, they're, you
Heartbeat.
know, things like that.
Yeah.
If that's what its entire vision is based off, it should be able to hear them. But even if it can't hear them, it should be able to smell them. So yeah, like, it's kind of a bit silly, because it's like, I mean, they could have kind of kept it, like, by having, say, for example, like, it made sense maybe when there was another scene where Sarah was in the same room as the crawlers while they were eating one of her friends, and that was quite a good scene, quite an effective scene.
Mhm.
And also it made sense because then she was quite a distance away, and also in a room that would probably smell quite strongly, so it would make sense they wouldn't be able to smell her, and it would make sense they wouldn't be able to hear her because she was a bit away from them. But yeah, when it's literally like right on top of them, and it's like just a head inches away from them, and it's just like, I can't hear a really loud sound. So it must also, like, surely it would just be able to feel the difference between, like, rock and, like, there's a bit where it actually puts its hand
Yeah, I was thinking that.
on one of the things. You feel like, you just feel it and be like, you know, maybe it's because they're so toned that they literally feel like rock.
Maybe, yeah. I agree with pretty much all of that, Michael. Yeah, that's the thing. These creatures, firstly, I was like, well, how do they survive? And obviously, okay, they kill deer at night or whatever when they leave the cave. But the thing is, if you just rely on hearing and you can't even hear that well, what's to stop you, like, in the middle of a fight, just standing completely still and not making a move. Because how do they know where you are then? Like, what if you're, like, running away from them? What if you just stop running and just move to the side and let them run past? Like, I just think that hearing, yeah, okay, like, bats have hearing, but bats use their hearing to hunt, but bats don't they have, like, sonar hearing or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bats. It's like they can, visualize.
Yeah, so these creatures should have had that as well. They should have been able to, like, hear stuff better. They should have been able to hear breathing. And definitely when you're feeling somebody's hair compared to a rock, you should be able to tell a difference there right away. So yeah, the creatures. I was thinking, like, they could also have a good sense of smell, perhaps. And it doesn't appear like they did. But yeah, they should have been better, Michael. They were pretty shit, to be honest.
Yeah, so those were the two unfortunate limitations to the creatures.
I mean, with the first part of them not looking that scary, it's like, okay, there's a budget, they only have 3.5 million, you can forgive that. But the second part of them just generally being shit when it comes to hunting people, yeah, not the best, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's one actual final thing I wanted to talk about with the scariness, and then obviously you can say anything else you want. So you mentioned before how they had a perfect excuse to not really, to make the creatures, that sounds not right, but
yeah,
the fact that creatures don't look that scary, they could have got away with that because the film's so dark.
Yes.
Now, I told you something interesting. Like I said, watch the film in a dark room, and the main reason for that is that one of the unique things about this film, and this is actually a cinematography thing, but it's related to the scariness, I think, is that the guy who made this film refused to use any, I'm going to use a term that's probably not correct, but I'm going to say it anyway, refused to use any non-diegetic lighting. Now, do you know what the term non-diegetic means, Luke?
Have a guess, Michael.
Okay, well, basically, I think I'm probably using it wrong. It's used in, like, sound. So, in a film, if there is, for example, music being played by a character on the piano, that's diegetic sound. But if there's music as part of the soundtrack, that's non-diegetic sound. So what I mean when
it's
I say,
in the actual movie or not?
Yeah, so what I mean when I say lighting is that he didn't use any extra lighting apart from the lighting that was being used by the characters in the film.
I like that.
Which was actually a really big challenge because there was like scenes where he had to, be able to light an entire, he could only use what the match would light up. So it makes the darkness of the film very immersive. And yeah, I think it's another example of they use that really well at the beginning. And they use it quite well when the creature first appears, and it's like, just appears and it's scary. But again, yeah, it kind of fell away a bit, like, because they started using flares a lot more and things like that. So the efficacy of that approach, again, sort of dropped off once the creature showed up. But I thought it was very interesting and immersive and scary. And also, it made the contrast of suddenly when she goes out into the brightness at the end when she pretends she escapes quite stark. And it's a very dark film, and you get these moments of brightness, and it complements the contrast.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we've talked about how if the movie was darker, it would have been better, made the creatures or the crawlers scarier, added to the tension. And also, yeah, it would have immersed you more in the film. Yeah, I did think that in the second half of the movie. It was like quite bright a lot of the time. There was hardly any moments where I was like struggling to see what was going on, and that's what I expected when you told me about this movie last week. I expected there to be scenes in which, I couldn't really see a lot, and I was, on the edge of the seat, like, oh, is there a monster or a creature right around the corner? But yeah, because everything was lit pretty well, it wasn't really the case. So yeah, again, the director definitely missed a trick there, I think.
Yes, yeah, I agree. But yeah, so apart from that though, I think that's everything that I had to say about scariness. Anything you wanted to say?
No, yeah.
All right.
Just, yeah. Pretty scary up to a point. Yeah.
We're making record time on this fog walk.
We are, aren't we?
That's a little Simpsons Halloween joke for you.
Yes, I forgot to put the fog lights in.
Can't get enough of that sugar crisp. Anyway, so now we'll talk about the characters.
The characters. So, Michael, I just want to say before we start talking about the characters, I could have mentioned this earlier. It might have been even been a nitpick, to be honest with you. But the characters did a lot of dumb things throughout the movie.
Right,
And
okay.
I was going to point out when, for example, when Natalie Mendoza, who's June Kaplan, Juno, does something stupid, I was going to say, well, she does this thing that's
I
just stupid
also
here.
had some stupid things the characters did, and I wrote them under. So we can talk about the stupid things the characters did with the characters. So obviously, the characters in general. So the specific things that each specific character did, we can talk about their stupid things when we talk about those characters. But did you have anything stupid that the characters in general did?
Well, I think the characters in general, they just talked like at a normal level. They didn't whisper. So obviously, we're going to do a quiet place. I think that's what it's called, a quiet place later. On in about a month, and in that movie I've seen bits and pieces. They're really quiet, and they do sign language and everything. And I'm not suggesting this movie would do sign language, but at least whisper, like when you're talking to each other to add to the tension. But they're just like talking in a normal voice, and it really just removes the scariness of it. Yeah, and they don't seem that bothered, even though they know at the end of the movie or in the middle of the end that the creatures rely on hearing.
Yeah.
So talk quieter, but they don't.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of another example of the film's a lot better in the first half because I guess one of the things we talk about with the characters, while we're talking about them generally, is that the acting seemed quite organic. The friendship seemed quite organic in the beginning. I can imagine that's pretty much how normal people would talk. Maybe like a few things seemed a bit like dramatized, like that's not how actual people would act, but generally speaking it was pretty accurate. And then also the characters seemed like quite convincingly scared and like behaved, or like, for example, the characters who should have been scared seemed scared, and things like that. And then obviously, like you say, they became increasingly stupid as the monsters showed up.
Everything seemed quite realistic with the characters up until the monsters started appearing.
Up until Juno started walking around going, Guys, where are you?
Let's talk about Juno. So she has this moment where she's so Juno sees like 12 of them with her flare, and obviously she's trying to catch up to the other two, like Sam and Becca, I think they're called. And instead of like quietly moving, she screams like "Run!" when she has already been told they rely on hearing. So in that situation, what I do is I pick up a rock. Preferably a large one, and throw it in the opposite direction. So they go, away from me. But she screams, run. And that's the thing, she doesn't need to scream run, because she's the only one there. She's the closest one to the fucking creatures. So yeah, it was just fucking stupid.
Exactly.
Stupid.
And the other thing, while we're talking about Juno doing stupid things, I think it was pretty stupid of Juno not to just tell them she wanted to discover a new cave. Like, I don't know about you, but if I thought to myself, okay, like, there's a cave, nobody's ever explored it before, I'd be like, hey guys, we're all thrill seekers. What about we go explore this cave that nobody's ever explored before? That's what I don't know. I wouldn't immediately think to myself, oh no, I really want to explore this cave that nobody's ever explored before, but I'm just going to assume that if I brought that up, then everyone else would reject the idea, and therefore I'm going to pretend we're going to, this one cave when actually we're going to a cave nobody's ever explored before.
Yeah, the thing about that though is like she may think that some of the other girls might not want to also explore a new cave. They'd just be like, nah, let's just go to Appalachia and, do a tourist cave and then just get back. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe she's thinking like that. And to be honest, what did one of them say as they were entering the cave? It's like, oh, I'm not Lara Croft or whatever, or I'm not a Tomb Raider.
Yeah, sure.
And so maybe she was right in her assumption.
Maybe I guess she knows her friends better than I know my friends.
Actually, you're mansplaining.
I just realized something, Luke. There was something I wanted to say about the creatures. We're going to have to do a terrible structure. I need to go back for a second just because you just reminded me of it then.
Okay.
For a very complicated reason you reminded me of it. I wanted to bring this up. Neil Marshall, the guy who directed this film, hired real actors to play the creatures. And what I mean by that, he didn't hire like if you're hiring extras, you can hire them for $1 a piece. It's not quite that cheap. You can hire them pretty cheap. He hired actors at actors' rates because he was like, he told them to develop backstories for their crawlers. He was like, okay, what's your crawler's motivation? What is like? He actually did it. So this guy's clearly insane.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like, it's one of those examples of like I guess like a lot of people would be like, this is how much effort he put into it. He hired actors to play these crawlers. He wanted the crawlers to be like real characters. But it's like, it was kind of pointless. I just wanted to say that. Like, he didn't need to. He had a budget of 3.5 million. He could have made that a budget of 3 million if he wouldn't have hired 12 actors to do what we could have done that for a couple of quid. Because we're big thick boys.
That's the thing, yeah. If he's hiring actors, like, well, fuck it, what's this crawler's motivation? I don't know, like they're hungry, they want to eat. Yeah,
it's weird. And I just wanted to bring it up just because I thought it was interesting choice. Like I said, I mean, it didn't make the film worse, but it also doesn't make the film better. So anyone who's going to praise this film and be like, oh, yeah, he hired actors to play the crawlers, that doesn't really come across in the film. You're not thinking, good acting. Anyway, but okay, we're going to talk about the characters again. So I did want to say,
quid well spent.
I did want to say about Juno. She did some stupid stuff, and then she did some manipulative stuff. She also did some good stuff. Like, for example, she was the only person who came back for the girl with a broken leg. Everyone else ran off. She just stood there and fought her ground. So, well done, Juno.
Well, that's because she was in a lesbian relationship with that girl.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, it seemed very much like that. And I thought...
Oh, that's what I like to think. No, I think she was friends, or better friends with that girl than the rest. So that makes sense.
So... and Juno, she was kind of like, she was a bit of a Boromir character, wouldn't you agree? She was kind of like, because she was a badass in the way Boromir is, of course, a badass, but she's also got that kind of, that manipulative, selfish and selfish attitude in the same way that Boromir tries to take the One Ring to Gondor. Yeah,
those kind of characters, they're always on the edge, aren't they?
Yeah, and those are that's the characters we want to see. I mean, I've always said every film should have a Boromir.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, I guess logically, do you have anything else to say about Juno?
No.
Next character we should talk about is Sarah, probably.
Yeah, Shauna McDonald as Sarah Carter. So this is the one whose fucking husband dies and kid dies, and then she decides the best way to get past that is spelunking in the Appalachian Mountains. I don't know. People cope with tragedies in different ways. She wanders off like a couple of times, or she wants to get away from the group, which is a bit odd. And it's, a classic horror movie thing, like, oh, this person goes away from the rest of the group, and obviously she's the main character, so she's the one that survives in the end, or kind of survives, she doesn't actually. And she also is the one that gets trapped in the scariest moment in the tunnel. Everything that's going on with her. And, I want to point this out because on the Wikipedia page, I'm just trying to find it. She goes into like has an episode. Here we go. Afterwards, she has a psychotic breakdown after she kills the crawlers, which is, a bit weird.
Yeah.
But there you go. I guess it can happen. Like, it's a very unique experience what she's gone through. You got anything to say about Sarah?
I guess just that, like, I'm going to give Sarah some credit. Usually I find characters like her to be annoying. Like, characters who their whole thing is like...
I'm so sad.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're sad and they're scared and they're freaking out all the time. But she was like, I don't know, I can't really say why, but I guess it was just because it was kind of like believable that she would be scared. Because she was in a relatable situation. She was spelunking. Like, the thing she was doing was already scary. So if it was just like, hey, we're going on a walk, and she was like freaking out, I'd be like, oh, she's annoying. But, she's I'll give her credit for that. I guess also, I mean, I don't think she does anything really stupid.
No, I don't think she does.
So well done there.
But she is a murderer.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah, she's a murderer. And I guess so. She murders Juno because she finds out that Juno had an affair with her husband.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if she also murders Juno because she thinks that Juno killed Beth, and it's kind of a bit weird because it's like, Like the fact that there's two things involved makes it a bit confusing. Like why, like if someone's going to murder someone, you need to know their justification.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it would be. It's kind of a bit weird. Like you'd think it would make more sense if they just picked one. So it's like, oh, her husband, because that kind of like works. Like the fact that Juno had an affair with her husband is like quite a clever decision, because it's like the whole thing, her whole driving thing that's making her so scared. Like you said, kicking off point for the plot is that her husband died. So
Yes.
having a whole thing be about her husband dying and being really sad about that means that it makes sense that she'd be really annoyed with Juno. And obviously she's still a murderer, and you shouldn't kill someone for that, because that's called murder. But like, and then I'd be like, okay, I understand it. She's just so like, I'd be like, yeah, she's still a murderer, and if anyone finds out what she's done, then she should be arrested and sentenced to prison. But having said that, I do understand. It'd be one of those situations. Like, okay, I get it. She slept with your dead husband. I thought, well,
Wait. She slept with your husband and now he's dead.
Yeah, sorry. You slept with your husband. Now he's dead. 4 other people have died already. You were just like, well, I mean,
it's one of those days, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But you still have to go to prison. That would kind of be what I'd say.
Yeah, I totally get it, but I'm sorry, still gonna have to go to prison. But here's the thing, like, okay, she's not the most rational, clearly, in that situation. She's just had a psychotic breakdown. But, like, wouldn't you ask her some questions? Like, just to make sure that your suspicions are true? Like, I don't know, I would be like, so what happened then with Beth? Did you kill Beth intentionally, or did you hit her intentionally?
It was kind of weird how the entire like discussion was almost happening entirely through subtext. It was just like it holds out a necklace, and then it just like looks and things like that, and you just think, it's an example of you'd say like, did you kill Beth? And she'd be like, no, she was, well, yeah, but it was an accident. That's how I'd do it. Yeah,
what if Juno just doesn't get the subtext there and it's like, oh, hey, my necklace, you found it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, thanks for that, Sarah. You're a real pal, you are. And then she fucking stabs her. Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe they needed both. The fact that she left Beth for dead, and also that Sarah's husband cheated with Juno. You need two, because one on its own isn't enough. So, like, okay, let's have both of them.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's one of those examples of too many reasons to kill somebody spoils the broth.
Yes, that well-known saying.
Yeah. Anyway, I think, okay, I want to get this character out of the way because they're pointless. But we've kind of been talking about them a lot just then, so I figured we should mention them. Beth. Beth is the non-character. Like, you know how I think, to be honest, I think obviously when you're going to have a film with a group of people doing something, maybe it's The Hobbit, maybe it's The Lord of the Rings, maybe it's The Descent. One of the things you have to kind of sit down and think to yourself is what is everyone's character? And I think that there's a very legitimate decision that every single person has to make, and it's which character's character trait is going to be that they're not a character. Because that's what you've got to have. You've got to have, all your different kinds of characters. You can have your funny character, your angry character, your smart character, your big, strong character. But every single film needs a non-character.
Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah, someone who just stands around and doesn't really do anything and then probably dies.
It's just there basically to talk to the main character or talk about the main character. Yeah.
So, and
basically the whole world revolves around, in this movie, Beth is constantly talking about Sarah. Yeah.
This is of course the character of Beth, and she has many great quotes. For example, how do you give a lemon an orgasm? You tickle its citrus. Which, I don't know, like, how you're supposed to be able to infer that is supposed to be a clitoris. Citrus and clitoris do not sound that similar.
Yeah, they don't. I can get. Yeah, she. In that situation, maybe the pressure was on, so she couldn't tell a joke that was any better. Than that, but yeah.
Exactly. I've got a good joke for you, Luke.
Okay.
I've got a book coming out soon. I shouldn't have eaten it in the first place. Classic. I heard it on this show called Mock the Week. It's about a group of comedians who mock.
Yeah, I know what Mock the Week is.
They had a guy who voted Brexit on it. He's a quite famous comedian. He's literally famous for being a comedian who voted for Brexit, and he does lots of jokes like Muslims. No, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Beth. Basically, she doesn't do anything. She dies.
Yeah.
I think the next character we should talk about
Well,
is
Alex Reed, by the way, is the name of the actress
Oh, yeah,
who
okay.
plays her. Just need to get that in.
Usually I'm not in charge of characters, but I tell you why, Luke. I was trying to remember all the characters, so I ended up looking it up, and now I'm looking at all the different characters. By the way, The Descent has a Wikipedia. So you know how you can have Wikipedia? You can have Wikipedias for certain things. There is
Yes.
a specific Wikipedia for The Descent.
That's
It's called,
stupid.
and this is hilarious, it's called Neil Marshall's The Descent.wikia.com.
What the fuck?
Anyway, so we got Holly.
Holly, yeah?
Her famous quote is "The Queen is dead. Long live the fucking Queen." I don't know. That's wrong. That's not a good quote. Holly, she's the jokester of the group, isn't she?
No, that was when Juno walked into the cabin and is like, "Hey, can you do this?"
Oh, yeah.
And Holly tries to replicate it and fails. But yeah,
Yeah.
she's the jokester. She's the edgy one.
Yeah. She's got short hair, so you know she's edgy. She's fun, and I guess you could say it was a interesting decision to have her basically like the film kind of shits on her towards the end, or the film basically shits on her in the middle when it has her horribly break her leg and then have to have it horribly put back into place, and then she horribly gets torn apart. She's the only character I think who we see getting eaten. So
Now there's what's she called, Rebecca. She
Oh.
also gets eaten
is she
alive.
like? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Actually, we do need to talk about her because that's fun. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, so ignoring that though, she's the second. She's one of two characters who we see getting eaten. Anyway, yeah.
She's also Irish.
Yes, that's true. And that of course explains because Irish people are funny.
They are. Yeah.
All Irish people are
For the
funny.
life of the party.
Yeah, like Father Ted.
Yeah.
So,
Like Father Ted.
Anything else to say about Holly?
No.
Now, okay.
She dies.
Who do you want to talk about first, Luke? Rebecca or Sam?
You decide, Michael, because I couldn't give a damn.
Okay, well, Rebecca and Sam, from what I gathered, okay, from a brief read, I think they are siblings. Okay, yeah. She is, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
You said she was.
I'm
from,
looking.
You said she was from some kind of Europe. She is
Some
from
kind
Scandinavia. I don't know if it's more specific than that, but it doesn't seem to be.
Do you know what their last names are?
Their last names. You know what? I can't. It doesn't seem to come up on this Neil Marshall's The Descent Wikia.
Burnett.
Vernet.
Michael Burnett. Those are their last names. Samantha Burnett and Rebecca Burnett. So that's the thing. So if they are sisters, then is it me, or did Sam just have a normal voice and Rebecca didn't? Or did they both have weird voices?
I think they both sounded a bit strange.
Wow, I didn't say they sounded strange,
Yeah,
Michael.
right. That was very yeah, I'm sorry. I actually almost thought they sounded like, for a moment, okay, I don't want you to be like, hey, you idiot, that's not what they sounded like at all. But just to clarify, is Sam the one who gets her hands hurt?
Yes, I believe
Yeah.
that is the case. Yes.
So, for one moment, I thought Sam was Northern Irish. Or Irish.
Irish.
But-
Yeah, well, that's Holly.
Yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, like, I thought Sam was Irish too, then. And I don't know how. Like,
So many accents here.
I know.
Can we just point out? You got Sean McDonald, Scottish, Natalie Mendoza, American, Alex Reed, English, Mayanna Buring and Saskia Mulder, who are probably both Scandinavian,
Yes.
I'm guessing, in this movie. Nora Jane Noon, he's Irish.
crazy.
Fucking, you got all the
Yeah.
white people.
Yeah, exactly. That's all the accents you can have. Rebecca and Sam, I think we should just take them as... I guess they're also kind of non-characters, so I shouldn't have really said... I don't think they're as much non-characters just because they stand around a lot more, you know? But having said that, there's not really anything you can say about them that's very distinct. I guess it's just because they do more. Like, they have the rope moment and the putting things in the place moment. And
Yeah.
also, of course, is Rebecca is the one who has the eating alive, being eaten alive?
Yeah,
and
she
that's
gets
cool.
eaten alive.
I mean, yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah,
Although it wasn't the
I
best,
wish
but it's
more
kind of
people
cool.
got eaten alive. Because, you know, yeah.
I mean,
I feel
two
like,
of them.
because the
practically
funny
did.
thing about, like, cannibal films is that, because I'm going to count this as like a cannibal film, because I'm going to count the crawlers as because they look basically just like dudes. Dudes who are blind, but still dudes, apart from the one who's a woman. So, yeah.
Like Irish.
Yeah, exactly.
in terms of
so
their
I'm going
skin
to count
colour.
this as
Very
cannibalism. Most cannibal films
Okay.
don't seem to acknowledge. They seem to think the point of cannibalism was to be as like horrible as possible. Because I've seen, in my days, 3 films about cannibalism, but only 2 of them were really that scary, violent. But they both have one thing in common, which is like the cannibals. It's not just that they eat people; they are as brutal in their eating of people as possible. Like there's one film called The Green Inferno where they like scoop out this guy's eyes, then they cut his tongue off, then they saw all of his limbs off while he's still alive. And it's like, well, obviously, that's what we do to cows and sheep and stuff. And then there's this other film which I mentioned it just a few weeks ago, called Bone Tomahawk, where it's Native Americans are the cannibals. And they scalp a guy, then they shove his scalp down his throat with a pointy stick, and then they turn him upside down, naked, and they cut, into his groin with a knife until he's basically sawn in half. And again, like, I don't know, cannibals, like, I don't really know why you have to make cannibalism worse than it is. Like, cannibals, they kill someone and then they eat them. But for some reason, when the people are like, oh, let's put a cannibal in the film, it's always like, no, they've got to torture them first, and then they've got to eat them alive. And I don't know, I would just like to see a film that didn't have this anti-cannibal bias in it, that showed cannibals, they, like, just killing people, maybe they just, like, I wonder if, like, in cannibal, how, like, nowadays we kind of have those people who are, like free range pigs, free range chicken, things like that. People who like their, there's a whole debate over, for example, halal and kosher food, is it okay to slit an animal's throat, or should we use a stunning weapon? I think I would like to see whether or not these debates would occur in a cannibal society. Would people be like, you can't slit a person's throat. You have to use the bolt thing to stun them. These?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just to exaggerate their savage nature. So yeah, that's why they kill them so violently sometimes.
But kind of like, I guess people do get eaten alive by animals. Like, so I'm kind of okay with that. Yeah. At least it's part of actually eating the person. Yeah. Because, for example, scalping someone and sawing them in half and things like that, that's not even helping. At least, like, zombies, they kill the person by eating them alive. At least with crawlers, they kill the person by eating them alive. That makes sense. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with this. Let's torture the person for no reason and then eat them.
Okay.
Stupid film.
So, have you got anything on our last character? Oliver Milburn as Paul Carter.
Is that the husband?
That's the husband. Occasionally known as Oz Milburn. But that's just by his close friends.
Okay.
He can't drive.
Oh yeah, I can see it, yeah. I don't know, there's also another character called Ellen Rios.
Who?
Okay, I'm going to find out who this Ellen Rios is. My laptop's being a bit slow. I'm really worried it's going to crash. Let's hope it doesn't, though. That would be a disaster.
Well, how about I look then, if you're so worried about your laptop
you're right.
crashing?
Good point. Yeah, you look up Ellen Rios.
Ellen Rios. She's a fictional character in The Descent Part 2.
Oh, she's in... okay, that's why. So it's got characters. Alright, that doesn't matter then. Anyway, so that's all the characters. And obviously, I don't have anything to say about Paul Carter apart from what he said. He's not a very good driver.
Yeah, he's not. Fucking should have seen that van, idiot.
Oh, and also, he did cheat on his wife. I don't want this to become another example of us acting as if women are the only ones responsible for adultery. It's not just like Juno was some temptress and this guy couldn't help himself. He chose to cheat on his wife, and I don't approve of that.
No.
Because I'm a virtue signaler.
Yeah, if you say something like that, you don't actually believe it, you're just signalling virtue.
Anyway, so that's everything about the characters. I did want to say one more thing. I want to talk about The Descent Part 2, really briefly. The Descent Part 2 is not a good film. Basically...
No, I can't imagine it would be.
Yeah,
where can they go from there?
Yeah, it's like, the entire thing is basically based on, like, the characters did survive. Those 2 characters survived. And then they bring, like... It's terrible. They get this sheriff, like a local sheriff, who they go and see, and he's like an arsehole, basically. That's his character. He's an arsehole. And he's like, I'm a man. I hate people. I'm great. I'm gonna kill them all. And obviously he dies a horrible death because he's the bad guy. And then there's a couple, like they literally have the Chad, the couple, where he's like, hey, baby, come on. And he like films her with the camera. He's like, you look hot. get naked for me and stuff like that. It's just so stupid. And also they get rid of the one thing they have, like they get rid of the one thing that made this film interesting, because they have loads and loads of studio lighting. So even when they're like lighting the cave with a match, the entire cave is lit up anyway. So yeah, very not good.
Not good. Yeah.
So
I think we should do our conclusions now, Michael,
Yes.
for The Descent. So I'll go first. So yeah, The Descent, a classic horror movie. Characters are trapped in a spooky place, this case a cave, and you add in a creature or some creatures, these crawlers, and yeah, just let's see how many survive. Let's see some deaths, and that's what occurred. Very simple. I think the creatures, as we've spoken about, were shown too often. There wasn't really a mystery created with them, and since they weren't that great, they weren't that scary, it would have worked twofold. You would have obviously managed to create more tension, a scarier atmosphere, and also you would have not had to show off these creatures as often as you did. And although the actors were actually proper actors in those suits, I don't think it made that big of a difference. They still weren't that scary, unfortunately. The characters do dumb things sometimes, but not too dumb. I think often horror movies we do say that the characters sometimes do stuff and it's like, what the fuck is that? What are you doing? Like, that's just ridiculous. There wasn't too much of that, although the characters not speaking quietly or whispering did get annoying sometimes, especially when Juno shouted run when she really didn't have to at all. But having said that, I think overall it was a competent horror movie. It certainly was scary in parts, particularly before the creatures turned up really. There was a lot of tension, which I liked. And yeah, well done for a £3.5 million budget. And I think, Michael, I'm going to give The Descent a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies, but this horror movie, yeah, it was decent. Quite decent. So yeah, that's it. How about yourself?
Well, Luke, I thought, again, this film was, like you say, a very effective horror film, a very kind of classic formula. It didn't try and do anything too special. I would say, obviously, you could say it was a classic formula, but it did some stuff that was better than the classic formula. And if you want to look at an example of a film that uses a classic formula and is bad, you could look at The Descent Part 2. So obviously, a lot of the time in horror films, you have the character who's like a bad guy, and obviously at the end he has to have the bad guy death.
That's a good point. They did miss some stereotypical horror movie tropes out, which are bad, which is good. So that adds to the enjoyment.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
They made some. So they stuck to kind of the basic correct formula, and also they made some intelligent decisions to make it unique by not sticking to all of the old tropes. The beginning was very good. There weren't any problems with the acting. It was kind of scary. It had a lot of tension in it. Unfortunately, in the second half, once that tension dissipated and was replaced with kind of the reality of the film's limitations, the film then got slightly worse. Having said all of that, if we're judging the film as a horror film, then we have to judge it relative to other horror films and kind of say, well, a lot of horror films have that problem of, like, you've got the really scary mystery, you've got all this tension, and then it's very hard. I think there are very few films that deliver on that tension. Only truly exceptional horror films deliver on that tension. And I hope we'll look at some of those truly exceptional horror films as we maybe continue into future Octobers and look at more Halloween classics. But this film, I would say, is pretty exceptional as far as horror films go. Obviously, you may not like horror films, you may like them a lot. If you like horror films a lot, you should definitely watch this film. If you don't like horror films at all, you probably shouldn't. And if you're kind of middling, then, sure, maybe watch this film on a Halloween. If you're one of those people who likes to do things to commemorate certain events, you're like, oh, it's Halloween, gotta watch a horror film, then I would say The Descent is well worth your time. And I'm gonna rank this one. I'm gonna put it...
Okay, sorry, Michael, 1 minute. I need to get to the door because my dog wants to
I can hear her.
Yeah.
I'm so close to finishing.
I'm back.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to rank this one above Ocean's 13 and below The Avengers, which is,
fair enough.
for the
That's a good
record,
place.
in my number 17 spot.
Yeah, I think you ranked it a bit higher than me. That's a good point, actually. I I'm not sure if there is. I've seen too many horror films that the second half is as good as the first half.
Yeah.
It's quite rare. Maybe you just need to let the first half stretch as long as possible. So it's like the first 3 quarters,
Yeah.
and then like the final quarter is like when you see the monster.
Yeah, in
Maybe
fact,
that's the way.
what I find actually is with really crap films or really crap horror films, you can just skip the first half because the first half, the characters are not entertaining. You know, the film does not have any sense of tension, and therefore the first half is literally just filler. So with a really bad horror film, the first half is worse than the second half because the first half is just so terrible that at least in the second half, people are dying. You know, at least in the second half, something is happening. But yeah, with good horror films, it tends to be the case that the first half's better than the second half because the characters are entertaining and the tension is being built up intelligently. And then obviously when the actual horror stuff starts happening, generally stupid decisions tend to get made and the tension dissipates a bit. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. We're all
Anyway,
agreed.
yeah. So apart from that, like I say, we're still going to be looking at horror films. We're going to look at 4 horror films, getting ready for Halloween. Next week, we're going to be looking at It Follows. And as we've pointed out, It Follows. So we'll be looking at It afterwards. And then A Quiet Place on the 2nd of November after Halloween, but who cares?
Yeah, it's a good movie anyway.
And then,
Speaking
but then we'll be
of
celebrating the scariest film of all, The Grinch, made by the same people who made Despicable Me and The Lorax.
Yeah.
Great.
Speaking of Halloween, Michael,
Mhm.
I wanted to play this Vine because it is October now, and because we are in the Halloween mood. I thought I'd play this Vine which I saw on Twitter. So here goes.
Your boy. Hey there, demons. It's me, your boy. Hey there.
How about that?
Brilliant.
Hey there, that's got 292,000 likes.
I thought
On Twitter.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say isn't Vine dead, but yeah, so it's R.I.P. Vine. Hey, that's what we should have on
Yep.
this channel. R.I.P. Vine compilations.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sounds good.
So,
That'll get the views.
until then, when we do It Follows, do you want to do the outro, Luke?
Certainly, Michael. So thank you for joining us for our first Spooktober movie, The Descent. Next week we shall be doing It Follows, as Michael has pointed out. So yeah, thanks for watching. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
And I've been Luke, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.